it is hard to keep going, especially if food prices keep climbing and the government keeps regulating, which is why Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson is worrying job seekers could be seeing something Mickey depressing. Senator, this is the big impediment, I guess, huh?
Well, hello, Neil. Thanks for having me on. But no doubt about it, consumer confidence is not high. I just saw a survey that came out today that said 48% of Americans feel we're heading toward a Great Depression. And there's no confidence in this economy, and I don't know why there would be. I mean, people look at Washington, they see how horribly broken it is. The U.S. Senate hasn't passed a budget in over 2 years. We've added $4.2 trillion of our debt to our debt over the last 3 years. There's just not a whole lot of confidence in the fact that we can actually solve things here in Washington.
All right, so even if you were to start solving that right now, what is getting in the way of companies like McDonald's and others from bad times? They've been having good times up until now. In fact, just came off a great month. What would reverse that?
Well, I believe it all began with the collapse of the housing bubble, and it's just shaking everybody's confidence. I mean, when the value of their home has dropped so substantially, when their 401ks dropped, a couple of years ago, then they've come back. But again, we have not seen Washington actually address our long-term fiscal situation. They just see a bunch of bickering here in Washington, and it's not getting solved. And from my standpoint, it requires presidential leadership.
So you on that, Ken, and back to the McDonald's thing, you said the president's been out to lunch. And this initiative in Northern Virginia today to get training for, I think, community college students so that they can find factory jobs in the next few years doesn't address the problem right now. Is that the gist of it?
No, I mean, let's face it, he dropped this budget in Congress 2 months ago to great fanfare. That was going to be the solution to our problem. We voted on it last week. His budget that would have added $13 trillion to our nation's debt and deficit, it failed 0 to 97. And now, let's face it, I think we're facing the bankrupting of America here. And this president, rather than be engaged himself, he sent his vice president to negotiate. And what are they? They've met about 3 or 4 times in the last month. I mean, it's not a serious effort.
So what would he have to do if you had your druthers, Senator, right now to say, get serious, get off your keister, do something real now? What would it be?
Well, I think we absolutely have to cut spending in 2012 to establish a lower baseline. We have got to cap spending long term. We've got to establish a glide path toward a balanced budget. From my standpoint, I co-sponsored Bob Corker's CAP Act, but that doesn't quite go far enough. We need to put ourselves in a glide path to limiting government spending, the size of the federal government, to our long-term revenue, which is about 18.8%. And then I'd love to see us pass a constitutional amendment that also limits the size of government to long-term revenue, which is about 18.8%. I think those 3 things would send the signal of a credible spending plan that Washington has gotten serious. And I think once we send that credible signal, then I think businesses will be enthused about spending. There's just, right now, capital's on strike.
All right, Senator, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on.